Welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast, where we help people to combat the negativity that inundates our daily lives with a positive perspective and positive action. Today's guest is Jeff Buehner. Jeff is the author of The Sultan's 7 Secrets, a game-changing book on building your dreams, managing your feelings, and seizing control of your life. See, 28 years ago, Jeff came across the writings of Sultan Musa of Mali. The Sultan could not talk about how he learned these secrets, so he embedded the principles in his success in a fairy tale so compelling that centuries later, nearly everyone in the world is familiar with it. In the Sultan's writings, there is something called the language of the gods. When you speak this language, the world obeys your commandments. As Jeff got serious about speaking this language, his whole life changed. He went from a $60,000 a year concrete guy to making hundreds of thousands a month in a new business that dropped into his lap. Over the past 28 years, Jeff has successfully mentored and coached countless others to speak this all-important language that changed everything. When you learn to speak the language of the gods, you can drastically improve your sales, success, fitness, relationship, anything else you desire. It's all contained in Jeff's book, The Sultan's 7 Secrets. So please welcome to the show, Jeff Buehner. Jeff, thanks so much for taking the time today for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. It's an honor.
Great. Well, let's get people familiar with who you are and how you got to where you are, because I always like them to know, the guest and who they are.
Well, I'm just a normal guy. I grew up in a small town, a farming community. So I was raised to work hard and kind of be free labor. So when I was 18, I couldn't wait to get off the farm. And as soon as I was off the farm, seems like I've been spending the rest of my life trying to get back to that kind of nice farming community.
And you don't realize what you don't have until it's gone, right?
That's right. Yeah, too often we flee the very thing that later we realize, that was exactly what I wanted.
Yeah. Well, that's something. Well, tell us about how did you stepped into this 28 years ago. Tell us the path. I'm interested in this.
Yeah, so I came across the writings of Sultan Musa of Mali, the richest guy to ever walk the earth. I mean, to put this in perspective, he was wealthier than Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos combined.
Wow.
And he lived in the 1300s in West Africa. So this guy was loaded.
Right.
But he didn't start out that way. His is the greatest rags to riches story ever told.
And tell us about that story, because I think people are going to be shocked when they realize this story. I think it's interesting.
Well, it's terrible that people don't know it. I mean, here's the richest guy ever. He grew up in West Africa. It's just a fantastic story. And he wrote a fairy tale that everybody is familiar with. Now, think about just that. Yeah. If I were to write a story, or, I wrote my little book or a fairy tale, I couldn't expect that more than maybe a couple thousand people would know about it. But almost everyone on the planet knows this fairy tale. And it's interesting. We'll get into which one here in a minute, but I had not heard about him until I was 33 years old, came across his writings in really a miraculous way, and that changed everything in my life. I won't say instantly. I mean, it did change it instantly, but then it took a little bit of time to come to fruition, but it changed me instantly, and that changed everything over time.
And that's a good segue. I know people are sitting there. Well, tell me, what's the story? What's the fairy tale? Let's fill them in a little bit.
This guy, Sultan Musa of Mali, is the real author of Aladdin and the Magic Lamp. And he wrote this story as a metaphor for his own life. And the reason he had to write the fairy tale and embed the secrets to his success in the fairy tale is to save his own life, to preserve his life. He wanted to teach these principles to others, but the way he learned them was through a near-death experience that he had as a young man. And he met a man made of light and love who really just taught him how the world works, how creation works. But you don't just come out one day and say,
Oh, by
hey,
the
I
way.
died, and then I came back to life. And by the way, I met God who taught me all this crazy stuff. It was a quick way to get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Right.
But with the fairy tale, he could begin teaching the principles to others. And if anybody called him out or tried to get him in trouble, he'd just say, hey, relax, man. It's just a story. It's just a fairy tale. But it was the means by which he lifted the entire Mali kingdom out of poverty, not just himself, but
Wow.
the whole kingdom by teaching these principles. And later, when he had enough power, it's said of him that he started construction on a new school every Friday.
Wow.
And in these schools, he put instructors, taught them the principles, and they taught the principles to others. And the whole Mali kingdom went from being just ravished with poverty and war and infighting to expanding. I mean, it really grew, and everybody was wealthy, happy, loving. And it's in the history books.
Wow.
Everybody should have known about this a long time ago.
Well, and that's interesting because a lot of people don't read history, which is a shame, but it is what it is. The other thing is, it's interesting. You said he was building a new school every Friday. That's like the first self-improvement school, if you will, being built in
Right.
the world. I mean, that's really something.
He
So
was the Zig Ziglar of his day times 1,000,
there you go. That's something. So help people understand how they can get control of their lives, if you will. Step through a couple of the, if you can, some of the process, because I know it's in the book, and I've been listening to the audiobook. It's very interesting. It's very intriguing on how this works. So let's try to tell the people a little bit more about this, if we could.
Well, to tell the story, I've got to go back to how I came in contact with these writings. So I grew up in a small town. We cared about working hard. That
Yeah.
was just something where, it was embedded in us. And we bragged about how many bales of hay we hauled that summer and how hard we were working. And you'd think it would work the other way around, but we as small town boys looked down on wealthy people.
Right.
Believe it or not, we had names for them, nicknames, and they weren't positive. And those were people who didn't know how to work hard. And
Right.
we almost implied that if they had wealth that they didn't work hard for, that somehow they were crooks or they got it underhandedly.
Right.
But to understand how important that was in terms of a deep-seated belief in me, here I am, 33 years old, doing what, subconsciously I felt like was the right thing to do, and that's work hard for your money. I was a concrete contractor, just putting in the hours, grinding it out every day, and feeling good about that.
Right.
But feeling terrible, really, about how much money I was able to make. The direction I was going financially, I was just going deeper in debt. I wasn't getting anywhere. And I didn't like it. I wanted to change my financial life, but just saw no way to do that. I just could not even conceive of a different way of making money.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am. I go to work for this couple, and they were elegant people. They were older. I thought of them as really old, but they're probably younger than I am now. But, gray hair and just
Yeah.
very elegant. And they were also really kind and open. They would talk to us. And they had everything I wanted. We were working on this beautiful home they were renovating in this beautiful neighborhood. And I got talking with the lady and basically said, you have everything I want, but I see no path to getting where you are.
Right.
And as we talked, it started out positive, but then it devolved into me complaining.
Right.
And I knew better than to do that, but I was complaining, and all of a sudden she just turned around and walked away. And I was so embarrassed because I'd blown my opportunity to get to know somebody who was living the life I wanted. But because I had complained and gone negative, it turned her off and she walked away. But a few minutes later, she came back and she put a manuscript in my hands and told me to read it that night, bring it back to her the next day. Now, I wasn't going to read it because I had no time. I knew I'd been up since 5:30. I knew I'd get home at about 7:30, wolf down my dinner, take a shower, and fall into bed.
Right.
But I happened to read one page of that manuscript, and then I stayed up the whole night reading the rest of it and taking notes. And like I say, this manuscript told the story of Sultan Musa of Mali.
Right.
But it went into detail about the fairy tale. It was well, there were I got to go to this language of the gods.
Mm-hmm.
So in the manuscript, there's the fairy tale, and then there's a description of the fairy tale and a complete tutorial on what everything means.
Wow. Okay.
And we'll get into that because I know your readers, or, the people listening want to hear this. They want to know what the fairy tale means. But
well, it's a part Disney doesn't tell you.
exactly. Yeah. They give you the fairy tale and then they don't tell you the important part.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, this is about absolutely obliterating fear in your life. And most people live in fear, or you could call it doubt or worry, at least concern. And the reason they live in fear or worry is because they don't feel in control of their life. It's like life is happening to them and they're just trying to keep up and stay out of trouble. As soon as you learn that you are 100% in control of your life, and you have been, you've put yourself exactly where you are. You have put yourself with the people that are around you, in the neighborhood that you believe you're supposed to be in. I mean, all of this stuff, you've done it. Well, the question is, wait a minute, how? How did I put myself here? And sometimes, Bob, it's the bad news for people. If they're not happy with their life and you tell them, no, you put yourself here 100%, and I can show you how. They don't like it at first. They're like, wait a minute, no, my dad did this, or somebody cheated me in business. I'm here because of them. Well, that may be, but the good news in this is if you put yourself where you are, then you can put yourself where you want to be.
Right.
And as soon as you learn how to do it, some people get ticked off because it's so simple. And they think, how did I not see that a long, long time ago?
Right.
But don't worry about that, because you need a little misery. You need a little, some experience behind you that hasn't been good to set the foundation for understanding this magic of how you take control of your life and obliterate fear.
Right.
And so all of the frustration that you felt in your life, that turns out to be a really good thing. People don't get this if they haven't had, that foundation.
Well, and they don't put negative to a positive outcome. How can that work?
Right.
School isn't always fun, but we learn and we grow, and that's what makes it better. That's what makes our life better, because we've grown from that, experience. So that's interesting. So what is some of the steps? I find it interesting because listening to it, it talks about the idea of your spiritual magnetizes your physical. Is that right?
Yeah. So we'll jump into that a little bit.
Okay.
So Musa, he falls in with an older thief who tries to murder him.
Yeah.
But during this experience, he has a near-death experience, and he meets this man made of light. And right off the bat, he's shown and taught that he has two bodies. He's got the physical body, which is dead back there in the cave, and his spirit body, which is the real him. That's the body with the life and the power. And he's obviously still very much alive and very much alert and aware. And he's being taught. And he also learns that not only does he have a spirit body, which is the one that animates the physical, runs the physical, but he has two minds. He's got this conscious mind that you think of as, who you are. But then you have what Musa called the veiled mind. Now, in our modern world, we're familiar with the concept of a subconscious mind. So almost everyone can get this. It's not too far-fetched to understand this veiled mind. But the veiled mind is the mind that really runs the show. It's the mechanism that controls your life. And it goes
the curtain.
That's exactly right. And what's funny is, well, let's go to the fairy tale, because this is fun. So there are four main elements in the fairy tale, and I'm just going to focus on three of them. But the first element in the fairy tale is Aladdin.
Okay.
Well, Aladdin represents your conscious mind.
Okay.
All right. Then there's this genie, the all-powerful genie, who can get you anything you want if you know how to talk to it, if you know how to summons it, right?
Right.
So here comes the magic lamp. The magic lamp is the thing about the story that makes it wonderful. Turns it from just a stupid story into this great story. You kidding me? A magic lamp? Well, here's the absolute fact, is that every single one of us has this all-powerful genie inside of us. It's the veiled mind, and it will do whatever we command it to do. And like I say, you've commanded it. You are commanding it right now, but not the way you think you are. So the magic lamp represents the language of the gods, but it's more than that. It's the understanding of how the conscious mind communicates with, and in fact commands, the veiled mind, which is the mechanism that controls your life. So as soon as you understand the language that the veiled mind speaks, hears, responds to, believes, and is programmed by, you can seize control of your life. And it's not the words that come out of your mouth. It's not the thoughts you think.
No.
Think it be that, but it's not. Your subconscious mind or veiled mind is absolutely aware of all of the words that come out of your mouth and all of the thoughts you're thinking, but it doesn't listen to any of that in terms of being commanded.
Gotcha.
So here's what it does listen to: feelings.
Yeah.
Feelings is the language of the gods. So you can talk all you want about being wealthier or having a better relationship or being more fit and healthy, but none of that is going to change anything until you change the way you feel about being fit and healthy or wealthy. And once you understand this, it's not as easy as saying, hey, there it is, now go change the way you feel about your relationship. Try that. You're going to feel exactly how you feel right now the first time you go in the house and there's your beautiful wife who says, hey, you forgot to take the trash out, idiot. Now you feel just like you always feel, and you'll respond in a way that'll keep her feeling the way she feels. So the trick is to change how you feel, because when you do, you change everything.
And explain that a little bit, because you got a great example of that in the book that you talk about. And, I could just picture it while you're talking about it, when you're talking about, the hunched shoulders and that, and then all of a sudden, you're up in the energy and the vitality.
Well, let me give you a good example of this because it's easy to see in others in life that how they feel about something changes how they act, what they're looking for, what they expect, and then what they get. You know, it's just so clear. But you take like a little league football team. You know, the first half, they're out there getting cream. They can't do anything right. The other team is just slaughtering them. And then they go into the locker room and they come out a new team.
Yeah.
Well, what happened? It's like literally they're not the same kids. They're hitting harder, they're running faster, the quarterback's throwing accurately all of a sudden. What happened? Well, the coach gave them the pep talk of their life and simply changed the way they see the game and see themselves and how they then feel about themselves and what they can do and their opportunity here. And they come out different.
Yeah.
Well, you can do the same thing about any aspect of your life. If you learn some simple games, techniques, tricks, and hacks, because literally you can command your subconscious mind to, like, you can set waypoints like you do on a GPS when you want to go on a trip.
Right.
You can literally dictate future events and then sit back and watch them transpire at some future date. You have that power. You can do that.
That's great.
And when I learned to do it, at first, Bob, I was afraid of this knowledge.
Wow.
I got so excited. I mean, imagine here I am, a frustrated guy in debt, can't see any way to get out of the situation I'm in. And there it is in black and white. It's the formula for success, the ultimate formula for any aspect, not just finances,
right?
Health, all of it. So I'm staring at this and it's simple. It's like, wow, okay, I can do this. But I almost didn't dare do it because I got so pumped up and excited that I thought, man, if I do this and it doesn't work, I'm going to kill myself. I mean, this would be too devastating after learning that this is available and then have it not work.
Right.
But it did work. I played around with it, did some things that didn't matter, and realized that coincidences were popping up left and right, and they matched the feelings I was generating playing this game. And I called it the game that changes everything. Kind of gave it that name later. But at some point I realized, yeah, that happened because of what I'm doing differently. So did that. So did that. And then I dove in and started taking this really seriously and started speaking the language of the gods. First, regarding finances, because that was the thing that was making me the most unhappy.
Right. Okay.
Then I used it for everything I wanted.
Huh. That's something. And I mean, what makes this different than, than the, if you will, what is that? I've got it written down, law of attraction. How is this different?
Okay, well, it's not really different except that law of attraction and manifesting have been misrepresented. So there are people, people would read these manifesting books, and then you had a generation of people who are lying on the couch with their eyes shut as hard as they can.
Yeah.
I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. Well, your subconscious mind knows that you're just saying that because you're poor. You're not fooling your subconscious mind. But there are certain games that it loves to play, just not that one.
Right.
It won't let you kid yourself. But for example, if you ask the right question, how would it feel to be wealthy? And then get specific. How would it feel to have $100,000 cash hidden somewhere in the house? How would that feel? Well, your subconscious mind loves this game, and it will feed you immediately the feelings of what it will feel like to have 100 grand. Well, here's the thing. You're dealing with this circle, and let me explain it a little bit. So you speak to your subconscious mind in the language of feelings, and it speaks back to you in the language of feelings.
Right.
So if you ask that question, how would it feel? It will feed you the feelings of being wealthy. Now, if you do this a lot so that you're feeling wealthy a lot, it believes your feelings. It fed them to you, but now it believes that these feelings should be integrated into your life. Now
Gotcha.
it goes and finds the circumstances and situations and interactions that will bring more of these feelings into your life.
Wow. Very cool. Wow.
Once you understand this, Bob, it's like it's the ultimate game
Huh.
of, learn how to do something that changes the way you feel. Just a simple game. Oh, and here's the thing. You have to learn to use your God-given superpower of imagination and the ability to pretend. Now, think
That's
how,
that's one I love. You talk about that in the book. And
yeah.
yeah.
So you're
We
a
forget
born
how to do that
pro.
as adults. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've been trained to quit doing it. But as a kid, you were a pro
Yeah.
at pretending. And it's how you learned everything: imagining, pretending, imitating. Is all kind of the same stuff. But you'd see somebody doing something you thought was cool. And then, you'd be out back with a cape on, pretending to be Superman. But during those moments of play, you were cementing subconscious beliefs.
Yeah.
All of your subconscious beliefs were set during an event accompanied by strong emotion.
Okay. Right.
So let's say you're a little kid and you're asked to sing, and you get up in front of the crowd and you're off key and you hear someone snicker, and it turns out to be a bad experience.
Right.
You feel really bad about that event. Well, from that point on, you're going to be afraid to get up in front of a crowd.
Right.
If it goes the other way, the crowd goes crazy, clapping and cheering, everybody pats you on the back. Now you're a born performer,
Yeah.
But here's the reality: is that nothing has changed in terms of how you set subconscious beliefs. And whatever your subconscious mind believes, that's the way it's going to be. You can take that to the bank.
Wow.
So you can still, a lot of people say all of your subconscious beliefs were formed by the time you were 7 or 13. That's all horse crap. That's not true. You can form a new subconscious belief tonight by using your superpower to create an imaginary experience that makes you feel really good. Now you think, wait a minute, you know that that's just an imaginary experience. It's not real, right? Okay,
Your
but what
subconscious
about,
mind doesn't, though.
well, what about the feelings it generates?
All right. Those are
If you
real.
imagine,
Yeah.
you ask the question, what would it feel like to have $1 million free and clear in the bank?
Right.
Your subconscious mind will feed you that feeling. Well, is the feeling real? Yeah. You better believe it.
Yeah.
And your subconscious mind is listening to your feelings. It doesn't care about anything else. It's listening to your feelings and believing them.
Right. Wow.
And as soon as it believes enough that feeling wealthy is supposed to be part of your life, you cannot stop yourself from becoming wealthy. You're not tough enough to stop it. Once you feel what it's like to be wealthy enough.
That's a good feeling I like.
So anyway, for the last 28 years, I've been developing and teaching the games and techniques and tricks that allow people to use their superpower to feel the way they want to feel, or to create the feelings that match the life they want, instead of, the feelings that match the life you don't
Right.
want.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Wow. And that's a good perspective for people, that is to realize those feelings can guide you in a positive direction. I really appreciate that about the book. It's really interesting with that. Well, it's always good too to know that, there's this is out there, that we have the capability to do this. I think that's important for people to realize as well. Jeff, where can people find out more about you, your information, your website? Where can they get a hold of you?
Well, I'm trying to get this book in the hands of as many people as possible. I tell people we're almost giving it away. It's really cheap.
Yeah.
You can download it today by going to sultans7secrets.com. And that's Sultans with an S at the beginning and an S at the end, the number 7, and then secrets, again, an S at the beginning and an S at the end.com.
Yeah.
So sultans7secrets.com. You can download the book. I haven't held anything back. You can learn how to speak the language of the gods today. You can be speaking it tonight and all day tomorrow. And when you speak this language, the world obeys your commands. It just does. You can take that straight to the bank. It's the funnest way to live. There's no downside to doing this. There's no negative side effect from being super
Right.
positive,
Yeah.
expectant, excited. There's only upside. You do better at everything, especially going through challenges, when you're feeling this way, and you can't look to reality to make you feel the way you want to feel.
No, yeah.
That's going to keep you feeling
It's
the
gonna
way you
kick you in the
do.
gut. Yeah.
So learn these 7 secrets and dispel fear from your life and start having a lot of fun.
And that's a great summary for what this book offers, is fun, a different angle, a different perspective, a positive perspective of ways to look at things and achieve great things in life. So Jeff, I want to thank you for being a guest on the Encouragement Engineering podcast today. I really appreciate what you're doing, appreciate the book. I'm looking forward to getting it finished so I can accomplish these things as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. Really appreciate it.
Great. Well, you have a great one here.
You too.
All right.